argue the social or psychic attack paradigm known as racism and prejudice at North America, and are under the concept that every hybrid European that may be the neighbor down the street is necessarily your enemy. That's not necessarily true. Understand that the hybrids that have been creating the subversion and the suppression and the subjugation of the natural people under unum sanctum operations and Dum Diversas operations are mainly and predominantly located or holding de facto positions in government. So it's not your neighbors that are doing things to you. It is people in government or people who are claimed to be government, and also people whom they contract and other subdivisional corporate entities to guise the fact that that the action actually comes from them. As an example, when you do research at the Maghreb or North America, Maghreb, you'll find many people talk about things such as Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Tuskegee experiments, etc., where they have via their unum sanctum operations and Dum Diversas operations, killing off and poisoning and destroying by virtue of different methods of genocide our people, the Aboriginal people of Morocco, America, the real Americans. And keep in mind, the real Americans, they refer to us as the copper complexion people, or the people with skin like burnished brass, as if burnt in the oven, and having generally woolly hair, etc., i.e., Moabite, Canaanite stock, etc. The Aboriginal, real, true Americans. And because of the schism operations, many of the hybrid Europeans have been successfully, and particularly since around 1861 in that area, promoting themselves as the Americans falsely in order to project the evils that they've been doing on the planet onto America and the real people of America. And that would often be done in what they would call, from a psychic attack perspective, of initiating an action or an attack under what is guised as blackface. And this is where the hybrid Europeans would hire contractors or themselves, and it would be initiated from people who claim to be government, where they would darken their skin and do devious things to blame what they have been doing to people around the world, and particularly here at the North, on the Aboriginal people, and they have been quite successful at that. And so therefore, we must be reminded to be aware of the projection strategies that have been used under the Dum Diversas operations and the schism operations for the successes of conquest at North America. However, also, about 18 years ago, from this location, actually around the corner, I did a lecture in November of 2003 in relationship to a lot of things that we're dealing with today. And with this particular book, this was a copy, or what you would call transliteration of that conversation. Was actually a conversation, and so they made it into a book. It's called Evolve Will Become Fertilizer for Those Who Are. Now, I'm going to read a couple of passages because it is in tune with what's going on today. So this is an opening statement of, in that book. I'll read a few. Forward. The contents of this book are derived from a lecture given by Tarik on November the 15th of 2003, 1423 MC, at Moorways, located on Market Street at Wilmington, Delaware, North America, northwest of Mexico. Taj was asked to speak on the subject of unity and economics. However, his perspective surprisingly, was not expected by the masses, as he first saw it most important to bring to the table the true, quote unquote, meaning of unity, quote unquote, and to dispel the commonly accepted myth that we as a people don't come together. And once the concept of unity was explained, a clearer understanding and comprehension of economics was gained. Once the issue involving economics was understood, we could more easily grasp why the gross national product, quote unquote, of the nation never matches up to reality and to true labor output. This information or informative lecture may prove to be very useful for all those who are in an honest search for social, political, and economic remedies for our Aboriginal natural peoples and for all natural indigenous peoples in general. Much of the information is based in true law, true historical facts, truth in religion, what it is not, relative to spirituality, and relative to what is happening now. Unity in economics are not limited to what you may have assumed or to what you have been told. And once you have read this booklet, pass it on to those you love. Opening statement by Tarik. I want to address the unity in constitutional principles, but I also want, prior to a break, a few questions because I want to see where your minds are so I can go there. It is better to feel where the people are and work off that than to prepare something and bring you something just because it might be interesting. Because it doesn't really work. We need to work with the spirit and what needs to be fixed. On unity. First of all, unity is something people always throw about with us, and they always say we need unity, unity, unity. It must be understood that the word unity is presented to you, as presented to you, and is presented to you. What it actually means is nationhood. Usually people say we need to get together to do something. We need to get together to do some economic things. We need to get together spiritually, economically, and politically. Well, guess what? That's not true. We've always been together. We party together. We go to picnics together. We go to barbecues together. We go to jams together. Whatever. And we've always been together. What we have not had are national principles, quote unquote, that bind us as one on a political forum. No matter where we are or whatever part of the land we are in or at, with a common law. And that's the principle of unity. It's called anciently, not modernly, anciently, Constitution. You must understand that Constitution did not begin with the misconcepts a lot of us have that the Europeans brought in constitutional principles. Constitutional principles are ancient as government and civilization is. Organized civilized government is based in constitutional principles and is called positive law. Positive law is called jurisprudence. Jurisprudence is founded in nature's God and nature's law. That which is founded by the Creator and nature. All universal law, or what we commonly refer to as Allah, all law. And for those who may be confused, Allah is a feminine word and is a feminine appellation or feminine name. So don't get confused with this masculine and feminine game that they've been playing with you in the name of religion, because it deals with divine law, universal. One of the things I recognize as one of the great weaknesses among us, and why most quote unquote vampires have been able to suck off the energies of the Asiatics of this planet, and not just particularly here, but on this planet as a whole, that has been smoked by quote unquote religion in our concepts and what religion is and what religion is not. Religion, originally as founded by the ancient Moabites, were teaching systems of our relationship with nature, your building blocks, the way you are made, how you operate in nature, how nature operates with you, your connection with everything that is in nature. And this is called divine law. It is not spooky and it is not conjecture. It is not based in beliefs. These are fundamental, functional facts. However, wicked caliphs, priests, and thieves have used these religious systems to create quote unquote secret principles for themselves to rule the masses. They start injecting agendas that have nothing to do with divine law, quote unquote, creating and making up quote unquote versions of quote unquote gods, and then selling them to the public and to the people, then dividing the people, then sucking off of them and using quote unquote the devil quote unquote as a scapegoat, and thereby ruling the world. That is the real deal. So when most people look at the hybrid Europeans and look at different armies and are saying, oh wow, look at all the things they are doing to the world, believe me, it is not religionists that did it. One of the biggest problems with us trying to get out of this thing is with the muddled concepts of and about our salvation, quote unquote. And we run to the very people who actually are the vampires. And one of the hardest things to do in communicating with people is to tell the truth and to have them accept it, because they want to beat you up. Because most of us are biased by whatever denominations or scholarism, secularism, and religionisms we belong to. And I am Muslim, but I will never deny that the wicked caliphs created divisions in Islam. The Quran says there shall be no secularism in Islam, yet you have all kinds of sects, quote unquote, just like in all other religious denominations. So let's not be or get self-righteous about these matters. The other deal is we must remember that both Muslims and Christians, etc., maintain quote unquote slaves and forced servitude. So again, don't get self-righteous. The weaknesses that we have is that when we don't know the real history of our social and political connection here in North America, the Crusaders have buried a lot of that history. And therefore, much of that is connected to us, or that is our actual birthright we reject. Because we think it belongs to the hybrid Europeans, the old deal of throwing the baby out with the bathwater is part of vampirism. Because in our blind rejection, actually, we are throwing out the political power to our birthrights by denying something because we assume that someone else is the founder of established government, which includes religion. I want to hit on certain things because it is important for you to understand and comprehend and not to assume otherwise. I may say certain things that technically and organizationally people don't say or don't want to say because it destroys institutions. But I'm not gaming like that. I'm for freeing my babies. I don't want my babies to suffer as I have suffered. And I will sacrifice me to make sure they have a chance. and I am not selling out. Secret institutions, Masonry, Skull and Bones, Jesuits, etc., Knights of Columbus, Ku Klux Klan, the whole crew. Why are they wearing our fez? Because they are all using the ancient Moorish principles of government to rule you with. When you start rejecting them out of hand without explanation or without examination, thinking that those clubs belong to them and that and have nothing to do with you, you have made your first mistake. Because that is your real history buried. It is not quote unquote black history. Your history is in those lodges. Your history is in governments around the planet. That is a diversion. We get into this thing. Oh, that's secret societies, and that is his thing. No, that is coded because Moors taught the Europeans Masonry. Masonry is just a modern system of structured government based on the ancient mystery schools of the ancient Moabites to bring them into government. We taught them governmental principles, civilization principles. But in order to rule you, they must not allow you to know that that's what it is. That is the nature of secrecy, not that it is a secret, because it really is not so much a secret as you think it is. They even hide it in yoga, in your advanced yoga lessons. If any one of you want to begin freeing yourselves from a suppressed mind of what you think religion is, and what you think it is not, and what you think spirituality is, and what you think it is not, breath, breathe, meditate, take ablution, pray, and go get yourself an advanced yoga book and read it from front to back and from back to front and free yourselves. These and those are keys. I'm throwing that out there because you need to know it. United States. The other thing is you must understand the Constitution that evolved for the United States, Central America, Central North America. First, you must know that it is not the only United States. So when you say United States, you don't let anyone play with you. And we're not just talking the different jurisdictions of quote unquote United States within this particular territory. We're talking about the fact that there is more than one United States political forum in North, Central, and South America. And you have the United States of Mexico. You have the United States of Brazil. You have the United States of El Salvador. And these are all United States of America. The United States of America in Central America, you assume, in Central North America, you assume is a national name. You must understand that it is not a national name. It is a political confederation phrase absent of the national name. And this is the United States of Morocco that you've been assuming was the United States of America. And that is the great Masonic secret. America is Al-Moroccan or Al-Moroccanos. And we the people, that is the stated, or that is stated in the preamble for the Constitution of the United States, or Constitution for the United States, is Society Republique El Moroccanos, and that is we the people who set this Constitution for the United States of America, which is the unity or the unit between the few select European sons and the Moors whose government was beginning to fall. And it was a compromise. It wasn't like the Moors got a good idea and thought they would be moral and good and teach the Europeans government and make this thing nice and peaceful for our posterity. posterity. No, the Moorish government was falling apart because of divisions, economic subversion, political subversion, etc. And so teach them government. And the fate was charted, and we Moors, the Aboriginal people of the land, the true Americans, recognized that if we didn't do something, we would lose it all. And so Chief Justice Ben Bay, who you have heard about in history books as Ben Banneker, was assigned the job to teach them masonry or orders of government. And this is the role, the real role of quote unquote Ben Bay in what they call modern U.S. history, and why you see Washington, District of Columbia laid out Masonically. But you can only see that from the air, and that's on the side. And that's something for you to research on your own, and you must understand that relationship. Now, on the matters of the economics that was discussed at this lecture in 203, they asked me about money. So real money. And you must also understand that most of you have never handled money, quote unquote. There may be a few here that are older and have handled silver and gold coins, but not too many. And most of you young brothers and sisters have never handled money. And the last time they had a silver coin operative at North America was in 1964. And around 1968, they sent out agents, U.S. agents, out as private entrepreneurs who were giving you so many Federal Reserve notes for whatever silver coins you had. 50-cent pieces and silver dollars, etc. They were actually government agents, etc., who were really trying to get the real money because that was the money. And I want you to think about this and to practice this when you go out and do your dealings. And that this is the principle that we need to carry into practice. Even those of us who are dealing with business or in business. Without economic security, you have nothing. First, you must understand that you don't have any money because you haven't been allowed to have money. So don't start saying you have money. You must begin to change your language. Call it finance. When you are paying bills, you are not paying bills. It is a transfer that is given as a lien, a transferred quote unquote lien that is basically discharged. But the lien is maintained on you in your name for quote unquote credits. The credit is nothing upon nothing upon nothing. Credit is the system that the Albion hybrid Europeans set up after they overthrew the Moorish government to maintain the forced servitude. And to assume that you could not have any money to buy yourself out of servitude, the plot was set forth to steal all the money and to send it to Europe. Understand that no debt, this is law, that no debt can be satisfied without gold or silver coins. And when you think that you are paying a bill, they accept the artifice and they dissolve or discharge it on their books, but the lien is placed upon and against you in your name. And this is how they really misuse the Social Security number, the driver's license, the birth certificate, and the marriage license. Of course, you know the marriage licenses come under Article 39 of police powers. I repeat, marriage licenses come under Article 39 of police powers. It has nothing to do with divine anything. And that's the system of controlling the womb without you getting offended. In other words, the state, quote unquote, corporate state, plays the pimp. And that way, they control the issue, quote unquote, under quote unquote wardship, WARDSHIP. And you are not fighting it because you think slavery is over, but you just signed a contract. And of course, you know how to qualify that or how to reserve your rights. And this is for most of the people who have been studying contract law, etc. And so slavery is Slovakian. Understand that when you use the word slavery, that it is Slovakian. And that is when the Red Russians went into Czechoslovakia and forced servitude on them, or the Slavic nations or Slavic tribes. And slave actually means Slovakian. It does not mean you. And when you say that you are a slave, or you are arguing issues in reparations and you say slave, you have already taken yourself out of the jurisdiction, and it's not going to work. And they know that you're not Slovakians, you are Moors. But they put the connotative on the word slave, as if it is a noun describing the condition of forced servitude. And that is connotative, but it is actually a nationality. And these are tricks, and you must change your language. Unity is national. The unity that is necessary for you to begin fixing this thing is called nationalization, politically. We are not talking about your beliefs or how you feel or your emotions and where you are at. It is happening. And we are talking about the actual factual law, universal. And you cannot become who your mothers and fathers were. You can only declare it. You cannot become more. You can only become Moorish, or you always were and always will be, whether you claim it or whether you do not. And one of the problems is many people have this information and keep presenting this information from a perspective of a belief, and people don't know that it has all to do with their pedigree, their bloodline, their birthright, their political rights on this planet. It has nothing to do with whether you believe in a God or not. Therefore, their concepts on how to look at this thing is totally wrong. And it does not mean that you are moral or immoral. It means that you must understand that it is being said, what is being said to you. And when Noble Drew Ali, our illustrious prophet, came here and declared that you are a nation, he was dealing with law, and he was dealing with heads of government. He was the first representative in modern times to represent the descendants of the ancient Moabites in their proper person status, which was necessary to make a stand at law before the nations of the earth. Outside of that, it is, if it is a Negro, black, or colored argument, it is just a movement. It is just a complaint. It is a program. Because there is no such people that live on this planet, therefore, there are no laws to govern them except for programs and whatever has jurisdiction over that chattel chose to be president. I.e., that is where the 14th and 15th Amendments came in political operations at North America. We can go further, but as an introductory, that's some of the lecture that I gave around the corner in 2003, and much of those dynamics have manifested themselves with the people to this day, and many people around the country and outside of the land have become conscious of their nationality and become more active, comprehending that the bloodline and pedigree of the Moors of North America has often been falsely misrepresented as a religious belief system when it's in fact their pedigree, etc. And to solve problems, what we cannot afford to do is to continue to look at things from an emotional perspective, but actually do some research and comprehend what's actually been going on here at North America. And so keep in mind, even when people are making reference to what is known politically in the congressional records and also in federal papers with the infiltration into the Moorish Divine and National Movement, you'll find the phrase often spoken of as the so-called the great sellout that no one talks about in detail. And I say to you, the great sellout has much to do with the schismata operations set forth via three-letter agencies that were used to infiltrate all organizations or any activities of all our Aboriginal people to literally commit murder, assassinations, distortions, misinformation, and other corruptions of information by deletion, by corruption, or by alterations to create, to sustain, and to maintain and manage schism operations at North America. And thus, this is why we are presenting tonight. Be aware of and reject U.S. schism operations. And by you knowing some things about of what they've been doing, that would give you intellectual capacities to intelligently make decisions to reject schism operations. But keep in mind, even when you see a lot of the quote-unquote divisions amongst Moorish groups, 90% of that divisions come from the early or late 20s and to the mid-30s with the infiltrations of all Asiatic African organizations by the hybrid Europeans disguised as government to create those schisms, etc. So keep in mind the schisms are not just a natural activity of the people, but they're actually political war psychic attacks. So be aware of them and start rejecting them. Was there some questions?
I'm just looking at comments, a lot of which I know I would like to present a question just from my own observation, because as you know, the events over the last couple of weeks with the rise of the Moors, with the rise of the Moors has caused a lot of even more division and schism about who the Moors are, or who should be doing what, or who is to blame. Namely, I've heard a lot of and seen comments where folk want to go so far as to blame you, who was here in this territory when that thing went off, and there's a tendency for many to look for one individual to be able to solve all of the ills and the problems that we are facing. And I want to know, I mean, are you putting yourself out as our savior?
Never has been that. What I've done is shared research information with people. And again, part of schism operations, and if you even look at some of the concepts that for people who have been trying to create those schisms, one of the practices is to blame the victim or blame the truth teller. Now, if you'll notice that 90% of the time when people make such statements like that, they will never give you what you would call a truth statement and then claim what I said is a lie. Meaning that if I told the people that 1 and 1 is 8 and they acted on that and created some problems, then some of those criticisms would be justified. But to tell the people the truth that they're not Negro, Black, or colored, and that they're Moors, and that this is their land, that they're the Aboriginal people, and they act on it is not an injury to the people, but simply a revelation of truth. However, at the same time, it creates problems for people, the hybrid Europeans who've been faking as government and faking as Americans, and it also creates problems for Asiatic Africans who hate Asiatic Africans and who are indeed themselves sellouts, many of who have or belong to organizations that it can be found in fact, are boule. It can be found and, in fact, are 501c3 Skull and Bones receivers to maintain the Christian Black codes, which is why they keep promoting Black, Negro, and colored in their organizations, etc., to create divisions. So logically, such persons and such beings would be upset with anybody, not just me, or anyone who would reveal any truths that would expose them. Because what you'll recognize, a lot of the schism is not just from the hybrid Europeans in government, but many people among ourselves. And so that's called, in political operations, projection. And this is where people who have created schism operations themselves projected on others who have been countering schism operations.
There is a sister, Moabitess, who's been on here for ever since I've been doing at least the lives. I noticed when I was doing office hours, and she's been a part of it. And she seems to, when I just asked the question, she said I made a great point that if you're not the savior, because that's what I asked, then why are you calling? You should stop calling yourself a grand sheik. There are many grand sheiks out there because her baby.
All over the place.
Let me finish if you don't mind. Her baby, and you've heard, but I haven't given you any in great details, but you kind of know about it, you know, from a standpoint of us having some discussion. There are many people or like her with many issues, and I mean each person's issue is their own, but I have to put it out there. You are not the savior of everyone, and I saw somebody else put out there that you're giving out you're putting out information, and we have to seek remedy. But you are not sitting. You're not writing writs for people. You're not.
No.
You're
People must bear their own cross. That's number one, and number two, the call for our people in consciousness is for us to recognize that we all play a part in the liberation of our people. There shall be no sacrificial lambs. And so when people are even mentioning this whole idea about savior, their concepts are wrong and concept is corrupted. And the deal of it is, if most of our people would not have been continuously among themselves promoting the Black codes upon themselves by claiming to be Blacks and Negroes, etc., and rejecting, which is what our subject matter is, the schism operations, many of the problems that we have would have been solved a long time ago to some degree. The other deal of it is many people, rather than charge the commissioner or those who commit the crime, i.e. hybrid Europeans, who have been under the guise of government stealing people's children and actually doing human trafficking for centuries. This is not new at North America. And when we talk about North America, we're talking about Canada. Now, so if you'll notice that when people bring up these issues and start bringing up issues for remedy and constitutional enforcement and treaty enforcement and principle applications, rather than them admit or talk about the priesthood and the churches who have been raping, murdering, or sacrificing children for centuries. There's probably no old church at North America, and that includes Canada, that doesn't have hundreds and even thousands of bodies of children that they have been robbing for centuries. And this is what she should be talking about.
I mean, I realize that in this particular case, you know, is specifically, you know, when it's your issue, is your issue. So you gather other people, but it becomes personal. I think the point I want to make, because I'm going to say this, and I know she hears me. I think it's totally unfair for her to use this platform to share, and that's good, but to use it to blast a person I'm going to call you a person, to blast you and call you fakes and you're not this, because specifically that particular problem has not been worked out. There are a lot of people that you have helped. There are a lot of people who are right on this call, on this live, that can attest to the fact that, and you never spoke with them personally, but they took the information that you provided and they studied themselves and they were able to apply it and assist it. But I understand pain, but I think when you start to talk about schism, that this conversation is part of the schism, because we can't get anywhere if we, you know, if I'm gonna just get angry with you because you didn't help me, doesn't mean you didn't help 99, because that it could be helped. So let's not knock somebody.
Is what the other thing that many people will complain should be doing is, what have they done?
Well, I'm pretty sure she's done a lot of things, but here's what I want you to address: the fact that even though what you are telling us is true, we are under occupation, and now, because we're but because we're under occupation, even the true things are being attacked as if they're not true. So I mean, I have literally spoken with people who have gotten their children back by declaring them as property. I even shared that information with my sister. Yeah. But you know, I don't know specifically how to do the paperwork per se, but when I found out about it, I shared it.
You know what it's like? This is back to, you know, what I've said for many years. If our people would sincerely put as much effort into the restoration of their birthright as they've been doing in their club religions, etc., much of what they're complaining about would have been resolved by themselves and people around them that they have been funding and supporting in the name of whatever God games they have been playing, etc., and have not produced anything but made the people poorer, including the fact that even the nations of the earth, as we talked about for years, even in 1960, deal with what is known as the Committee of 24, talking about decolonization. And North America is one of the major places that they talked about. But instead of our people dealing with national principles, as Noble Drew Ali said, since 1913, they've been going around marching and praying and then wanting other results and then getting mad at other people for not doing the work that they themselves should have been doing. Let's look at this also, Dr. Naila. How many people has it been known that would stand up and tell the truth in opposition and taking the beating even from people who could benefit from this information, rather than them attacking or addressing the people that are doing the injury? Now, for the public, I'll say this. I did not influence and I did not take part in taking her baby. That was some hybrid Europeans who she's not addressing. And she wants to accuse me or someone else of taking her baby.
No, not taking, but not getting her back.
If you didn't restore, the one who's the restorer is the one who did the deed. Let's be clear. In other words, if I didn't take your sandwich, don't argue that I didn't feed you. That's number one. The real deal is, for years we've been telling the people about status. We tell people about the black codes, and if they say that that's wrong, that's their choice to do. However, those are the issues that have been going on. Our people have been spending their time, their energy, their finance, supporting people who've been promoting the black codes, getting the black codes enforced on them, then getting mad at others who've been exposing it. Now, the deal of it is the rule that it is in African culture is this. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own and worship under their own vine and fig tree. And if she had been operating under that perspective, then she would have that argument to make for herself, not for others. And when the book, and when the culture, and when the traditions say that every man, every woman, every child must confess their own, you can't put the obligation of confessing your own on another. It is your own responsibility. However, it is our duty, brothers and sisters, to come to each other's aid when one's in adversity. It is not your responsibility to carry their cross. This is not the age of carrying any crosses for anyone. This is the age for all men and women, and even the children, because the book says even the children to confess their own. So age don't even matter. If you get the point, you can't even make the excuse that you didn't know. Or now this comes back to consciousness. And so those who are spiritually in tune and harmonic with coming out of the three-dimensional energies and going into higher dimensions or higher planes of life, they will recognize the truth as their own. Those who have not will not and will reject the truth and get angry at those who speak the truth. And if I have told a lie, identify that lie. If you have not identified that lie, you should sit back and stop interrupting with the progress of people who are helping to remedy or to bring remedy and consciousness to the people to reject the schisms that many of you are still operating in.
No, like I said, I totally understand the pain.
The pain
loss.
does not justify fraud.
Yeah, I understand the pain. You know, I've lost a child who was transitioned.
Hand.
No, it was to their hands.
Don't ever suspect that it wasn't a
psychic attack. So I know the pain.
Yes.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, I think I need my sister to redirect her anger, because we all feel it. We all want her baby to be back in her arms, but we all can't necessarily make it happen.
Around the country who have the same issues.
True.
It's not, remember, none of us stand alone with this. There's many people around the country who have the exact same issue. Now, here we go with the issues of nations of the earth coming together and dealing with conventions. So write this down, those of you who are listening. The conventions on genocide, and read it. Also, the rights of indigenous people, and read it and act on it. Meaning that you can show people certain information, certain facts, but if they don't accept them, they have the right not to accept them. But that's still called free willism. Where everything that is done today with humanity is free will. Those who will go to the higher planes of life and would be showing themselves spiritually capable of dealing with higher dimensions, etc., often referred to the fifth and sixth dimension, etc., and the quantum thinking, which is a spiritual ascension, etc., will start creating their environment accordingly. And those who want to stay in the third dimension or energy and still worship under Rome, etc., will have that right of that experience. However, as we talked about a year ago, Dr. Naila, when I mentioned that all masks are off,
yes,
that includes both Asiatics and Europeans and hybrid Europeans. Wherever your spirit is, your mask is off. And don't charge other people with your own dirt. Now, that's a fact. And don't think that our experiences are not necessarily groomed by ourselves, because you are creators and makers of your own condition also. Take responsibility. Stop trying to put your responsibilities on others. However, participate with others who are trying to help. In other words, don't try to bite the hands that are trying to feed you.
Lord help you. Let me put this question out that Moors in America posted, and I asked them to repost. Please clear this up, Brother Taj, and at new channel, Root Words 1, a citizen is a member of a free jural, Jural society.
Not necessarily, but continue.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, wait a minute.